Welcome to PodLeaders.com. I am your host, Tom Raftery.
Scene one, Apple, take two.
Hi everyone and welcome to the 26th PodLeaders show. My guest on the show today is Todd Cochrane of Geek News Central. Todd, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Tom. Appreciate you taking time to talk with me.
And thanks for getting up early on your Saturday morning to talk to us.
It's a beautiful Sunday morning here, or Saturday morning in Honolulu. So go ahead.
It's the rain is coming down here in buckets. It's horrible. I want to be where you are. Todd, can you, for the listeners, can you give us a bit of background on who is Todd Cochrane? I mean, how did you get to be where you are today?
Well, I guess I'll give you my standard pitch. I'm in my 40s, and I've been working in the technology field for the last 20 years, primarily working with advanced aviation systems and aircraft, and have traveled quite a bit throughout the world. And all of these years, I have always stayed in touch with families and friends with whatever communication mean has been available, whether it be when the bulletin board systems were hot and heavy in the 80s until when the internet started to kind of rear its head up and show that it was going to be something, a good medium. And obviously, here we are today with everyone having weblogs and, of course, now podcasts. But kind of where I fall in on all that is, for a number of years, I ran an online bulletin board, which transformed essentially into a weblog. And then, of course, like everyone else, I got caught up in the podcasting phase. Although my startup was relatively early, October of 2004, when I started creating shows for my Geek News Central website. Now, the goal was, when I started that podcast, was more of an extension of my weblog, a way to reach the people that were reading my weblog, and to talk about obviously this stuff that was on the website. And it kind of snowballed into a much bigger animal. But I'm a dad. I got 4 kids, work full-time job, and of course have all this other stuff, all these other irons in the fire going on with podcasting. But background is in technology, so I am a true geek, I guess, if you want to call it that. It kind of sums it up kind of initially.
Sure. People who listen to your podcast often hear you refer to the day job, but what exactly is your day job? What do you do by day as opposed to just the Geek News Central stuff that you do?
I worked in advanced technologies. I basically I work with major aviation firms here in the United States, looking to see what they have new in the world of technology and apply that for my employer with the Department of Defense for the United States.
Oh, okay. And can you tell me now about Geek News Central as part of the Tech Podcast Network? Can you tell me, I know you're involved with the Tech Podcast Network, can you tell me something about that, what its background is and what the aims are?
In December of 2004, Steve Holden and I were on a Skype call, and we were basically talking about technology podcast. And December of 2004. And he and I said, well, it'd be kind of cool to start up a small group of people that would, share ideas on how to build audience, do audience building by doing cross promotions, and set up a place where we all could congregate. And that's what turned into the Tech Podcast Network over at techpodcast.com. I think we started off with a core group of 13 or 14 people, and the goal ultimately of the group was, from day one, was to have a aggregated presence. In other words, we would combine all of our show totals together, because we found that because we were trying to build support for advertising for our podcast, was that we as a collective, we could have more buying power than we would as an individual. So that's what we did. And then that progressed into having a website, having a presence with doing some functions together. And then in June of 2005 being picked up by Citrix Online or GoToMeeting to do advertising for them, quickly followed by GoDaddy as being a sponsor. That both of those companies are still working with us now, I guess 8 months later. And we have two membership levels. One is if you don't want to be involved in the commercial aspects and just want to be involved to share ideas and talk about technical issues, we have a member side of it, and that is more or less the barrier to entry is simply have created 5 shows, be child safe so that you're not, this material that is being put up on the network is all rated G. Have a have a semi-good show, have some good audio quality.
Sure.
And then we, as a collective, we vote whether we're going to allow someone in, and then they are admitted or not admitted. And if we don't approve someone, we tell them what they need to do to improve their show or change, and we come back and at a later date and let us take a relook at them. But those that are members that want to participate in the commercial side of things can opt to do so. And we have an agreement, an affiliates agreement that they essentially sign, and then I negotiate on their behalf for advertising.
Very good. How many sites are in there at the moment?
I think right now there's around 80 total members, with only about 20 being affiliates. I think some of the podcasters have found, we had some guys that started off as affiliates and then reverted back to being members because they figured out that having a sponsor was a lot of work, and they wanted to have a little less binding type of a show schedule, so they decided to continue to be members versus affiliates. But overall, it's a pretty good group, and we have a couple of private mailing lists that we participate in.
Okay, that's interesting. You say some of them reverted from being affiliates because of the load that was put on them, essentially. What are the requirements put on them for being affiliate members? Or can you talk about that?
Well, yeah, sure. It's whenever we negotiate an advertising deal with an advertiser, there are certain things that you would that go along with a ad deal, whether it be putting a banner ad on your site, putting some text within your show notes, acknowledging the sponsor, and of course the audio spot within the podcast. So I guess, and also and I had always way I negotiated all of these advertising deals was saying, okay, I know that we've got this number of impressions of shows per month that are being created, and we know what our basic listenership download numbers are through the program that Kevin Devin created called PodStats, which we independently verify each member's show numbers. So the burden really boiled down to whether or not they wanted to continue to have an advertiser on their show. So some people have kind of figured out, yeah, it's good to say I want an advertiser, but once you do get one, then you have to realize that there are some obligations that go along with having a sponsor.
Okay. The PodStats program that you mentioned there, does that mean that the affiliates host their shows on a tech podcast server?
No, they do their own hosting, but they essentially submit their raw log files to be verified with the actual statistics of their show. And essentially, I give an example. Let's say I have let's say if I use an arbitrary number of $100, and I sign an advertising deal for $100, and we have, let's say, 5 people that are participating. We do it on pure percentages. If your show comes in at 23%, then you'll get 23% of the advertising buy. So that's how we use it to verify. PodStats does nothing more than looks for completed downloads of a MP3, throws out the duplicate downloads of that particular MP3, and counts the unique IPs and then the unique downloads, and also measures the total bandwidth that was used.
Very good. There are various business models, I think, emerging at the moment, yours being one of them. Where do you see business models going with podcasting? What do you think is the one that's going to emerge as the business model for podcasts long term?
I've seen a few podcasters well, actually one podcaster that has put his podcast up on Audible. Probably you're more familiar with him than I am, but he's hoping that his podcast will be supported by a subscription.
Sure.
There are other podcasters that are going out and having their entire show underwritten by one sponsor. I think that's a good model if you can get the type of dollars that you want. And I guess I go along with saying with Michael Gohagan, he says, if you're going to go out and find a sponsor for your show, is it worth to go out and find a sponsor that is going to pay you $100 a month and then have the headaches of having a sponsor for $100 a month? Or should you build your show up to a reasonable good audience numbers, concentrate on the content, which you should always do, obviously,
Yep.
and then go out and try to find a sponsor for $1,000 a month? There's a big difference there in values, but at the same instance, most podcasters today do not have the audience numbers by themselves in order to go out and find and sign a deal. Now, there will be some exceptions to that. There'll be some shows that are very, very specific and may not have big audience numbers that will be able to negotiate a deal. But typically, most companies will not. You call. Let's say you call a Fortune 1000 company to try to get them as a sponsor. They write advertising checks in the multi-thousands of dollars, and they don't even know how to do a deal, a one-on deal for a small show. So I encourage those podcasters that are looking to monetize their shows. I think where the best model is going to work out for the majority of podcasters is for them to aggregate together in like-minded groups. Find people that are doing shows like yours, combine your totals, and then you'll have much more success at finding a sponsor. And some people don't want sponsors, and that's fine too. But I've obviously been kind of focused on that over the last year.
Sure. You mentioned on your show, or the last couple of shows, something about a new site which is about to be launched. Can you talk about that?
Well, I suppose I could. I'm going to give in a little bit of an exclusive here. As you know, that I have, well, maybe you don't know, I have two companies. Podcast Connect is essentially the administrative arm for Tech Podcasts. So any of the business that we do for the Tech Podcast Network is done with Podcast Connect. Late last year, when I was wanting to implement some more ideas that I had, I put a call out on my podcast to look for certain people. I wanted a lawyer, I wanted a developer, I wanted a graphics artist person, I wanted someone that had already worked with a startup and had a heavy business background. And I got real lucky, and I found 5 people. And then additionally, I added a content manager later that we went through an interview and vetting process. So those 5 formed, us 6 have formed a company called Raw Voice. And Raw Voice, the goal of Raw Voice is to provide a family of podcasting services. The first thing that we launched was the Podcaster News Network. And those that aren't familiar with Podcaster News Network, it's at podcasternews.com. And what we've done is we went out and recruited podcasters, and we've also taken people that have come in and found the site and applied separately for a spot. And what all we're doing there is the content on Podcaster News Network is unique content. None of the content is reproduced. We ask people to create new shows. Even if it's in line with their long format show, we ask them to kind of change the short format show up. And when I say short format, all of the shows on PCN are no longer than 5 minutes long. It's a real short show, in and out type of content. And with that, we built an engine, and this engine is we call the Raw Voice Generator. It's a software package that we are actually licensing and have licensed to a couple of companies now, and we'll be making announcements on those companies at a later date. But it's essentially set up a good application for people that are building networks. It's people that have a group together and want to have a central place to publish their shows, and it's a very powerful package. It's very integrated, very easy for podcasters to submit shows, and it's In other words, you can see information out at rawvoice.com via the product link. But anyway, late last year, I got to know a gentleman by name of, well, he's a podcaster, named Trucker Tom. And Trucker Tom has a website called Podcast Promos, and that's podcastpromos.com. For a very long time, he was running podcast promos off a PHP BB web form system. People could go on there, submit their promos. Other podcasters could come in and play them. And there was a way for the for people to do a little sharing and cross show building within the website. Now, if you type in podcastpromos.com during this interview, you're going to go and see the very same site. But sometime in the next several days, we're going to flip the switch, and Podcast Promos is now going to be a revamped site. We've done a deal with Trucker Tom to roll that out as a new, basically it's going to be a revitalized site running on the same engine that runs Podcaster News. We've reskinned the Podcast Promos website. Podcasters are going to be able to go in. They're going to be able to sign up for an account. They're going to go through an authorization process. Basically, we want to make sure that people are who they say they are. Once their listing is approved, they're going to be able to go in and create a profile and submit up to 3 promos to the website. And it's going to be fully categorized. And what's going to be really cool about this website is let's say that you do a podcast on sports. And like on my show, I promote other podcasters all the time. I have them submit promos. But let's say you're looking for a little filler info and you've listened to a guy's show and you want to show him some link back love. You go over to Podcast Promos, go to the sports section, you'll find his show. Either download his show directly from the website, or you can subscribe to the RSS feed and get all of his new promos, or get it by category, or even go even further. Let's say you have a family of people that you like to help promote. You can subscribe, you can add those to a custom RSS feed through a system we call MyCast that'll allow you to essentially, anytime one of your good friends or someone's show that you follow puts up a new promo, you'll get it downloaded just the same way as you would a podcast. And it'll be sitting there and available for you, and you won't have to go hunt for it. And we plan on bringing a lot more things to that website than just promoting promotions. But we feel this is going to become the central place for podcasters to congregate to promote their shows. And it's not only going to be just for podcasters, but listeners are now going to be able to come over and find snippets, find information about your shows that they're not going to find relatively any other place, because we're going to allow you to put up a little graphic show description. It's going to be kind of a mini directory to a certain extent, but it also is going to be dedicated towards podcast promotions. So if you got a 30-second promo, when we get it up, you'll be able to submit it. And we're going to allow up to, the promos are going to be limited to 2 minutes. So if any of you out there that are creating promos, don't go over 2 minutes. You'll be able to submit them to the Podcast Promos with an S.com website.
Excellent. Sounds very good. Best of luck with it. One of the things I do when I'm going to interview someone frequently is I'll put a note on my blog saying, I'm going to have this person on my show. Does anyone have any questions for that person? I did that with yourself. I put up your name. I said, going to be talking to Todd. Has anyone got any questions? And I got a couple of questions from a guy called Con. Con is a podcaster here in Ireland. He has an Irish language podcast. I think it's still the only Irish language podcast in the world. Do you mind taking a few of Con's questions?
Sure.
They're in English. You're okay.
Okay.
First question Con had was, what are the challenges that you see for the solo independent podcaster?
I think it's because the landscape is growing with the number of shows that are becoming available, is to be able to have your site be seen and get the right type of eyes to it. I'm a firm believer that if your site is just an average WordPress movable type default skinned website, that it's going to be real hard to break out. So I'm a very big purveyor in when I work with podcasters to get your site branded. If you plan on doing this as more than a hobby, and you're worried about your number of listeners and you want to grow show audience numbers, content, no matter what, is always king. I always go back and say that. But also the branding of your website. When people come to it, the first impression is, wow, this guy means business. That'll help add to the idea that what your show is about is they're going to have a higher opinion of you. So I think it's important to have good branding on a website. So if that means hiring a developer, you can do that. For people that are, people are worried it's going to cost lots and lots of money to have a website, kind of branded up and skinned. I encourage them to look online. There's a lot of developers that are working out of the Eastern Bloc that are willing to do site redesigns for very little money, much cheaper than maybe what you'll find in your local community. And for those of you that are on a budget, I know that many of you will have sensitivities on wanting keeping business at home or within your own country. But if you're on a budget and really, really tight, that is an option to explore. But content, getting your word out, posting from time to time in the forums, announcing that in the various podcasting forums, announcing that your show is available. Get your promo played on as many shows as possible, and that's a two-way street. What I found when I was building my show was I would say, hey, Tom, Sue, and Sally, I played each of your promos on my show, and here's a link to mine. I'd appreciate a play if you would. I kind of would do it the opposite way. I'd play theirs first before they played mine, kind of and hopefully to get some more exposure. So I think the biggest challenge, number one, is getting recognition for your site. I will say that the group that I'm working with at Raw Voice, we are going to be introducing some more projects here in the near future that is going to help. We feel is going to be designed to help podcasters get their sites seen and get the type of recognition they need and have a central point where they can be found easily by the listeners. That's the big problem right now. You go to many of the directories, and if you go to it and with the perspective of a listener that has just found out about podcasting, doesn't know anything about RSS, doesn't know anything about iTunes and downloading, but has heard the term, go to the directories and look at those and see if it is actually easy for them to listen to your content or find content. I think that is a big challenge we're still facing, along with education of the public.
Sure. Con has a further question. He says he heard you in a podcast recorded at Doug Kay's Podcast Academy last November, and he said you made a good point about the value of good equipment in cutting down on post-production time that can be better spent with one's family. How long does it take to prepare, produce, and publish an episode of Geek News Central?
It's funny that you asked that, because today we're going to be doing a live event over at techpodcast.com, and that is actually one of the subjects for today's program. When I first started podcasting, and this is the warning I want to give to everyone, if you have created less than 20 shows, don't even consider buying any additional equipment, because until you get to the 20 show mark, you're gonna need to vet out whether or not this is what you really want to do.
Sure.
So we've seen a lot of shows come on with a ball of fire, and 10 shows later, they're gone. So I say wait to 20 shows before you even consider buying equipment. I think my first 20 shows recorded with a LabTech headset, $695, that I bought at a local big box, and free software that I downloaded off the internet. But after I got to about the 20 show mark, I kind of decided, yeah, this is going to be a long-term project. So what I did is I went out and invested in equipment. I wanted to be able to hit record, record that show, hit stop, encode it into MP3, and upload. I may be doing a little cut off the end where maybe I had a little bit of leader, or maybe do what's commonly referred to as RMS leveling, but my post-production on my show is no longer than 3 minutes. When I hit stop, I maybe do a quick look at it, do a little RMS leveling maybe, which is an automated process within Adobe Audition, which is the application I use to record in. I recorded it to MP3. I dropped the ID3 tags in, and boom, it's done. Now, how I was able to do that was, number one, I invested in a good mic. Number two, I do audio processing, and not everyone is going to need to do this. My office here has 3 computers running. 2 of them are servers that can't be shut down because they're connected to the net. So I needed a device that would allow a noise reduction, and I use a compressor gate, which is a DBX266XL. It's a DBX266XL. It's a dual channel gate compressor, very affordable. It's a mid-pro device. I have a DBX 15-channel equalizer. I have a box is called the Optical Big Bottom. It's by Aphex. It's Aphex 204. This is a very optional item. I picked this up just because of my voice is not super deep. So I needed to add a little more resonance to the sound.
Sure.
And then I have a good mixer. And then I have a backup recorder, which I just use now I use a Marantz PMD660 as a backup recorder. But when I started, I just used a little iRiver as a backup, and then I record into a PC with a high-end audio card. All total, probably US dollars, around $1,200 US dollars was my investment, along with a phone bridge, which came later, which was an additional $600 that I used for phone interviews. Now, that investment allows me to basically save all of the post-processing time, any editing, any noise reduction. From time I sit down to do a show, and my kid's usually in bed, if I'm lucky, between 8:30 and 9, I'm usually done recording and jumping into bed 12:15. So about 3 hours, and and I have to do that's including the research that I do for my show, which is an hour to an hour and a half, an hour recording, and then the upload and the show notes.
Wow, you have it down pretty good. I guess the next obvious question coming out from that is, how do you keep up with all the news that you read out on the site?
Well, I have subscribed to approximately 400 websites with a news aggregator. I use FeedDemon, and I scan those sites relatively quickly. I go through, and if it even looks half interesting, I open it in a new tab within FeedDemon. And by the time I get done going through it quickly, I may have 60 or 70 tabs opened up. And then I go through, and then I look at each article. And by the time I'm done, I'm usually down to 15 or 20 items that I want to talk to. I go through and reread the articles and make sure that I understand what they're talking about. And I also get listener submissions. People send me, usually I have 2 or 3 listener submissions per week or per show. And believe it or not, I get instant messages all the time from people sending me stuff. So I take all that combined info, and that's what I use for the format. Plus, I have whatever, if you've listened to the show, I'd spend usually around 10 minutes at the beginning just talking about what's going on here and just general chit-chat before we get into the content.
Cool. And you can do all that in an hour and a half? You're a faster reader than I am.
All of an hour and a half. And part of it is because FeedDemon allows me to have what I consider a river of news.
Sure.
You load the category of information up, and you look at the top level category, and you just can roll your scroll wheel down through the content. I don't subscribe to any feeds that are partial feeds. If the feed is not a full feed, I don't even subscribe to it because I'm not able to scan it. I have to waste time looking at the I'd rather look at the full feed and then go back and talk about it. Yeah,
same here. Do you listen to podcasts yourself? And if so, what podcasts do you listen to? Or how many podcasts?
To be honest with you, I've actually, over the last year, probably have listened to 1,000 or 2,000 different podcasts. And this is what I do. I will, once a month, I will add around 200 shows. And I would just go and grab an entire category. And I will kind of do kind of a browsing of shows initially when I'm first listening to them. I'll listen to 5 to 10 minutes of a show, and maybe not listen to the complete thing, and then I'll fast forward and I'll get to the next show that's in a lineup, and from that I will whittle down the shows that I want to listen to for a month. But typically, I try to listen to new shows every month. There are certain shows that I do listen to on a daily basis. I obviously listen to some of the major podcasts that are out there. I do listen to a lot of technical podcasts. I listen to some of the stuff that comes out of IT Conversations because I like conference information that I wasn't able to attend. So it is pretty wide variety. I really wouldn't want to just say this is my top 5, but I probably do have a top 10 at least, and then this random. And I think the thing that people need to realize is you got to get out there and start sampling shows, because just because I started creating content in October 2004 by no means my show is better than a show that just came out last week, because someone may have just gotten on the bandwagon and they may have a lot of good things to say. And I think that's the thing that worries me, and it's one of the reasons why I try to listen to a lot of shows, is try to find those gems out there that are kind of down in the noise floor, and try to find them and dig them out.
Sure. Just at the start there, you mentioned you download a category. Where do you get that category? What is that, from iTunes, or what do you mean when you say you download a category?
Well, I will go over to Indie Potter, and I'll actually grab an OPML file off of an entire directory, off an entire category, and I'll import an entire category off of that. Gotcha.
Very good. Okay. Todd, do you have any non-tech hobbies? I mean, you seem to immerse yourself in tech the whole time. Do you take time out to get away from tech at all?
Well, I do. And here in Hawaii, we've obviously got some of the most beautiful beaches in the world. And I shouldn't say that, because there'll be a lot of people out there saying, nah, Hawaii doesn't have the best beaches. But I do like hanging out at the beach from time to time and just relaxing. As far as other hobbies go, I haven't had too much time for hobbies in the last year because of building all these businesses. But when I can, I like to listen to, I do enjoy music. And I've been getting a lot of enjoyment out of a lot of this music that a lot of us have never really been exposed to before with the PodSafe music. So I've been listening to a lot of that. I'm going to school too. I'm going to college, refreshing my education. So it doesn't leave too much time to even breathe.
No, I can believe it. And finally, what's the current story with the ghosts?
Well, if I stand up here and I look out my window, as you may know, I live on historic Ford Island. And Ford Island, during World War II, was the Arizona Memorial is essentially attached to Ford Island. It's where the Arizona was docked. It's where many of the ships here that were docked that were destroyed during the attack. And the Utah, which is about, I'd say 100 yards from my house, where the actual small memorial is for the Utah, is close. And if you draw a straight line between my house, between the Utah Memorial and the Arizona Memorial, it almost runs directly through. So what people are thinking here is that we have some of those heroic sailors that are walking, ghost walking of some sort. That is the speculation anyway. I don't know if people will buy into that or not, but definitely we've had some weird occurrences here, but nothing lately, thank goodness.
Cool. Great, Todd. Listen, thanks a million for coming on the show.
All right, and thank you for having me.
No problem. Well, that's it for this episode of the PodLeaders podcast. I've been your host, Tom Raftery. Thank you for listening.
Scene 1, Apple, take 2.